Hello, YouTube. This is T-Virus here with a very strange upload. And it's not just gameplay this time. So this is uploads that we are getting out there, and it is me discussing every single buff or nerf or just leaving it be for every single killer perk. This video will be split into two different parts. Part 1 for killers, Part 2 for survivors. Killer perks are very timid on deciding the factor that you need to buff or nerf on, so I will try my best not to be biased about killer buffs because I play both sides 50-50, and I will be deciding. Also, I am not normally rank 20. This is just an account that I booted up Dead by Daylight on. Anyways, starting off, Nurse is Calling. Basically, all this does right now is it lets you see auras while people are healing within a 28-meter range. That is perfectly fine right now. Agitation. At first I was thinking, why is there a point to increasing the terror radius? And then I thought, yes. So you to let people know that you're coming in a certain direction while you're carrying somebody. But on the other hand, I also thought, hey, there's this new perk coming out called like Starstruck for the new killer, the trickster, and whenever you carry somebody, survivors are the exposed status effect. So the terror radius is fine, doesn't need to be touched. Bamboozle, it makes your vaulting speed 15% faster, and it blocks the window so survivors cannot vault through it. Only one window at a time. I think that this is fine and doesn't need to be touched. Barbecue and chili also is perfectly fine, doesn't need to be touched. Now we're on to a perk that actually does need to be touched. Beast of Prey. You gain the undetectable status effect after gaining Bloodlust Tier 1. Gain 50% more blood points for actions in the Hunter category. This is very rarely used, so it should be used just to make it a little bit better. I'd say give a 10% increase in speed for gaining Bloodlust Tier 1. All other Bloodlusts are fine. And keeping the undetectable status effect. This basically just makes you go into Bloodlust slightly faster. And it would grant the undetectable status effect. Just, it still would rarely get used because the 10% is barely anything. And it just decreases like an extra 5 seconds that it normally takes. But that's all I can think of. Bitter Murmur. I think this perk is very underrated and pretty good depending on how you use it. But whenever it's only when the last generator is repaired that all survivors auras are revealed for 10 seconds. Right now it is only within 16 meters of the completed generator their auras will be revealed for 5 seconds. I think that it should just be indefinite. All survivors auras revealed for indefinitely for 5 seconds, and then instead of the end one where it normally does it for 10 seconds, that is fine. It's just 10 seconds, and it makes it for the last generator. Blood Echo. This makes people exhausted for 45 seconds, and it has a cooldown of 60. If anything, this doesn't get used that much. I use it on one killer. I use it on Demogorgon because I go to generators immediately after hooking somebody. If anything, just reduce the cooldown from 60 down to 40 or 45. That's fine. Blood Warden. Okay, so since this perk has came out, survivors and in-game collapse, survivors typically just leave the exit gates on 99 and then they open it right as they got everybody going out. But what I think just to counter in-game gameplay like that, Blood Warden is very powerful right now. So, but I would give it a complete revamp. Just like Remember Me, Freddy's other perk, for each individual survivor, which is a fresh hook, so each survivor gives you a stack. For each stack, you gain 15 seconds on each exit gate. For whenever the exit gate is opened, you gain 15 seconds. So instead, this is a very different thing. So if you hook 4 survivors, then you gain the normal 60 seconds because 4 times 15 is 60. But now instead of opening the exit gate yourself, which also would be a viable strategy for Blood Warden, but instead of opening it, waiting till they have 60 seconds left on the in-game timer and then hooking somebody and waiting for the entity to take all of them, which for one, I don't think it's honestly worth it. The only thing it's worth it is the entertainment from every survivor dying, but it doesn't really do much. But instead, when the exit gates are opened, you use up all of your stacks, and then you gain the 60 seconds by then. So when exit gates are powered and open, you gain 60 seconds. That's basically it. Bloodhound is very, very interesting to me. All it does is make the blood that survivors bleed out like redder, and you can see it anywhere. It barely gets used because it's almost completely, utterly pointless to use. I think, see, right now it still does the tract for 4 seconds longer. If anything, I feel like it should be indefinite until the survivor is healed or downed. So you can basically track them across the whole map, uh, wherever they've bled, straight to them. Instead of, well, mid-chase you're going to see their scratch marks anyway. This one lets you track down an injured survivor all the way across the map until they're healed. When they are healed, they have an extra 4 seconds, and then it goes away. That makes it viable. That's just my opinion. Brutal strength is fine. You destroy pallets and generators and breakable walls 20% faster at full level. Corrupt intervention is fine. You just the 3 farthest generators. It prevents people from immediately popping gens, and it's good on setup killers like Trapper, Demogorgon, Hag, and many others. Claustrophobia, uh, I feel like I don't know. I don't really actually remember very well, but I could have sworn somebody told me that it used to make your terror radius bigger, and the only time you want to use this is if you are running distressing, but this takes up 2 perk slots to make somebody's healing 50% slower, which is massive, by the way, and it makes you take quite a long time to heal yourself. It's pretty much worse than sloppy, but like instead, I feel like this should make it where your terror radius is 5%, 5 meters bigger per person that you have injured, and keep the penalty. I don't know. It's just something off the top of my head, which is this whole video. I have nothing written down. Alright, Coup de Grace. This perk had great potential at the beginning. This is something I really wanted to talk about for a long time. Coup de Grace had great potential on its full release when twins were on PTB, but then they up and got rid of 10% of the lunge attack percentage. It right now is when a generator is completed, you gain a token, and your next lunge, which is holding a basic attack down, which is normally a short, a quite long range but not too big, and then it increases by 60%, and you get a much more massive range. But what they did is that if you don't want to use it, which it rarely gets used, which makes it so unviable, is whenever you do a lunge attack, you automatically use one, and then it gains your extra thing. I think that just like whenever survivors, if they dead hard, they press E or whatever button you have it set to on a controller, you you press an active ability button, then your next lunge will be 60 meters, or 70 if you want, if they decide to buff it. If anything, I would go with the active ability button just to make it better. Crew limits. This perk I always have thought was absolutely horrible, and I just don't see it working on any build at all. Only person I can see it working on is Demogorgon himself, which it is his teachable perk, and Freddy. I think the 32-meter radius from the generator is completely pointless because this was a buff that they gave recently. They made it slightly bigger. That was completely pointless. It doesn't do anything. Nobody uses it still. I think it should just block every single window on the map for 15 seconds instead of 30. Every single window for 15 seconds at max level instead, for it to be a little bit better. It's basically bamboozle, but for whenever a generator is completed. See, most times you don't want a generator completed, so whenever they do, it can only be used at a maximum of 5 times. So every window on the map is closed. If you're chasing somebody and the gen gets done, a TL wall, it gets completely done for, and a certain map, I could think of Haddonfield, Myers House, they just can't go back through the windows and they get trapped upstairs. Perfectly fine by me. Dark Devotion. This perk is pretty interesting. It's whenever you hit your obsession with a basic attack, they gain your terror radius for 30 seconds. And the terror radius apparently goes to 32 meters, and you are granted undetectable. This perk is pretty fine by me, and I think that's perfectly fine. If anything, and I think I'm doing a bit of a stretch here, make the perk last indefinitely until you track down and hit the other survivor, or if they heal themselves to a full health state. Okay, Dead Man's Switch. This is a Deathslinger perk that is very rarely used as well. It's very interesting. I think it should be very similar to this perk, Furtive Chase. But instead of whenever they unhook a survivor, it's whenever you hook a survivor, they become the obsession, but it doesn't activate the perk until, well, no, no, that promotes tunneling a little bit. Even though if they have decisive, it really doesn't matter. But like, yeah, basically it's completely pointless to talk about this. I just leave it how it is. Maybe instead, if anything, if I'd buff it at all, make it 60 seconds instead of 45. Deathbound. This is an executioner or pyramid head perk. Is whenever you're healed outside of your, basically outside of your terror radius, their auras, they scream, they reveal their location, and for 60 seconds, if they are 8 meters away from each other, they will be oblivious. But it only works on the healed survivor, which it's so complex and strange, and I barely get it used. I use it on Doctor as a meme because I make my build on Doctor is making everybody scream, and so if they heal outside my terror radius, I don't have to use my shock to find them. Then I know where they are, and then they're oblivious. But this perk, I think the cooldown on it is non-existent, and it's perfectly fine, kind of, but it could use some work. I have no idea how to work with this. It's so complex and strange to me. But I feel like they should instead both survivors be oblivious instead of being 8 meters away from the healed survivor, because they'll just stick together once they heal each other and they scream. So that's about it. Deerstalker's fine. It just lets you see where your slugged survivors are. I don't really slug that much, but it's pretty much only useful on twins. Discordance is fine. Any generator within a range of 128 meters, which is basically full map range. The aura remains for 4 seconds if 2 or more survivors are on. I don't understand that because it pretty much stays on the whole duration that they're on, and it sometimes just keeps going off. Distressing is weird. It's completely useless. It just makes your terror radius bigger so survivors can run away faster. It just gives you 100 more blood points and deviousness. All that does, pretty much, it's one of those meme perks, like one of the meme add-ons. It's just basically a meme perk. I can only see it being useful for certain other perks. If anything, they should just make it where you double your blood points if you use it. I don't know. It's terrible. Dragon's Grip makes it where if you kick a generator, they scream and they're exposed, which means you can insta-down them for 60 seconds. And it has a cooldown of 80 seconds, which is pretty hefty. I think instead of 80 seconds, it should drop down to 60 as well. Since like it's pretty long for 80 seconds, which means you barely get to use it, and when you kick a generator, being exposed is medium, but not. I use this on Wraith and Twins. Dying Light, this one is very interesting because it literally gives one of the survivors, which your obsession, a fifth perk pretty much. It gives you 33% action to unhooking and healing, which means your obsession is going to be going for unhooks so many times, and they got built in. Built in will make it. But every time you hook somebody who's not the obsession, they get 3% penalty at a maximum for 8 tokens. Instead, what if it doesn't give the obsession those speed actions, and instead just make it where they don't get any. If you're the obsession, they don't get the penalty, and if they're hook, you lose a token instead. So basically, just you leave the obsession, but they don't really get you don't really gain from leaving them leaving them at all. You just pretty much have a survivor that doesn't get affected by the 3% penalty. And enduring is fine. It just gets done by a pellet slightly shorter. Fire up. Okay, so it basically gives you 4% for almost everything. Picking up survivors, dropping survivors, vaulting, damaging generators, breaking pallets for the rest of the game every time a generator is completed. What if you buff it up to 5% and you make it for every single action that you do? Like hit cooldown range. Like if you hit somebody and you do your little reload animation, instead it's kind of like save the best for last, and you get a reduced cooldown by a maximum of 20. Yeah, pretty much 20%. No, 25 if you gain that extra percent. But yeah, that I still feel like if you want to make it better, you give them the pretty much save the best for last into it whenever a generator is completed. All these whenever a generator completed perks should be buffed because pretty much only whenever generator is completed, which you still don't want, you gain something, but this is barely anything, and it's only at its best whenever it's all generators completed, so, I mean, not very viable to me. Force Penance, it's take a protection hit and they're broken for 80 seconds. They buffed it recently to make it actually decent. I think it's fine. It's pretty much whatever. Franklin's Demise has gone through a change a while ago where instead of reducing charges for the item that you knock out of their hands, after 90 seconds it's not picked up, it will basically just completely go away. But I think it's fine where it is. It's not horrible. Bird of Chase, I don't think if you kill the obsession you should lose all your tokens, and I don't think it should be a maximum of 4 tokens. Like, it reduces your terror radius by 4 meters, and that means while in a chase, though. Basically, I think Bird of Chase should be, in general, reduce your terror radius by 4 meters for a maximum of 4 tokens, in general, making your terror radius 16% smaller, and if you're running a monitor, it makes it so much smaller, and just making it overall, like a perk that you could just put on. And this is also only whenever you hook an obsession. And if they die, it goes away. But instead of it going away completely when an obsession dies, we just make it indefinite. Because it completely changes your obsession every time somebody's unhooked, which is its own little thing, but I still think it should be indefinite. The worst perk of the day, Gearhead. This perk should completely be changed and revamped. When it was on release, it had great potential. I think that basically to buff this perk, they should go back to where they started. It was after hitting 2 survivors. No, after hitting a survivor 2 times with your basic attack. Whenever a survivor completes a good skill check, so basically anything that's not great, which is like 50% of the time they'll hit a great, but if they go back to what they had on release where it was indefinite until they let go of the generator, I think it would be perfectly fine. It wasn't even that great enough to be nerfed into the ground like this where it's not going to be viable at all. Hangman's Trick is pretty interesting. They did a buff on a random mid-chapter update where they made it way bigger than 6 meters from a hook while carrying a survivor. Then they nerfed it back down to 6, and it's just not used at all. What if it lasts for, like, it lasts indefinitely while you're carrying your survivor, and then 3 or 5 seconds after you hook them, it's still going on. So if a survivor runs near a hook, you can still see their aura a little bit. Basically, all this does right now is it prevents sabotages, barely, because like they're just gonna run to the hook that you're heading to. But like, alright, I don't know. Blood Favor is weird. I think Blood Favor should for being a hex perk of all things. Also, we're just now getting into all the hex perks, so this is going to be pretty interesting. All these perks should be revamped, in my opinion. Not all of them. Some of them should. But basically, whenever you hit somebody with a basic attack, pallets that aren't dropped are blocked for 16 meters. Even though when you hit somebody with a basic attack, they're going to run away from the pallet within 16 meters, and they're going to get to another one. Instead, I think it should be increased to 32 meters, and keep the hefty cooldown of 40 seconds every time you hit somebody, and keep it at 15 seconds. Just like for being a hexpert, it's gonna get cleansed eventually. I don't think it's not that good, but like yeah, increase it to 32. Make it where like if they're running to another palette, then they can't use it. Basically, that's about it. I mean, it doesn't work on Windows or drop palettes, so I mean, yeah. Devour of Hope is perfectly fine in its own way. That it's using it. It encourages people not tunneling or camping, and you get rewarded for leaving the hook. I think it's perfectly fine. Haunted Grounds, perfectly fine. It just rewards you for having survivors that always want to cleanse totems. Huntress Lullaby is like, I mean, it's only good at first until they just literally just start concentrating until it reaches 5 tokens, which makes no skill check warning, which makes it slightly difficult. But if they just concentrate, they can always hit goods. It doesn't have to be greats or anything, but I mean, it's not really great for a hexpert, but if they could buff it up to like bump it up to like 6 or 8 tokens and just make it instead not a hexpert, I think it could be pretty good, because it encourages you to hook multiple survivors just to get up to that 8, like kind of like where's it at? Dying Light, kind of like Dying Light. But yeah, instead of a hex perk, I think it could work. Alright, here's the big perk of the day that I'm going to start off saying that it needs a nerf. Yes, as me, a person that also plays killer often, thinks thinks that Noed should probably need a nerf. Noed, right now, is in a pretty bad state, where almost every low ranks killer is gonna run it because they feel they get gen rush, because they don't know, one, they don't have the perks to pressure gens, 2, they don't have the mindset or knowledge that they need to pressure gens, and 3, they always camp most of the time, and they don't get up, they don't rank up, and they just depip, and they just never learn. I'm not going to talk about this, but I will link in the description and in the comments to a video of Otsterava, somebody that I respect in the Dead by Daylight community as one of the best people for mentality on this game, on how on basically how they play, and they will be explaining it in the video on how they do it, and I completely agree with them. So moving on, Retribution. For it being a hex perk in a one-time use, especially, I mean, like, sure, the Oblivious thing is pretty nice. I don't know if it tells them or not, whether or not they're oblivious when they're cleansing it, because I've never gone against the Retribution. But instead of the 10 seconds, it's pretty, like, it's literally a one-time use. It's literally just bit of Murmur at 5 gens, as we spoke about earlier. It just shows Survivor's auras for 10 seconds. Bump it up to maybe 20? Like just bump it up to 20 seconds, because it's a one-time use hex perk, which means it gets rid of your perk slot once it's cleansed. I mean, it synergizes well with Haunted Grounds, but if you're running both these perks at the same time... Also, this gets used whenever any hex totem is cleansed, but every time I run it, Retribution is always the first one that goes. Like, it synergizes pretty well with Hex Undying. It means you get a whole 20 seconds after its use, because you cleanse it twice. But if you're gonna run Hex Undying and Hex Retribution, I don't know. You're basically wasting 2 perk slots just to see auras for 10 seconds. Bump it up to 20. And you only have to waste 1 perk slot for the normal both. And even when you use both, you have a whole 40 seconds of aura revealing. So yeah, I think bumping it up to 20 is fine. Ruin. Oh lord, we're talking about probably the most used killer perk in the game. Um, if depending on how gens work, and depending on because everybody checks a ruin and then they immediately cleanse it, and since they nerfed Undying and killed it recently, there's this is going away. This is fine for the first half of the game, and it basically you don't have to kick gens for a little bit. You just chase. That's it. It's fine, but like totems are very interesting to talk about. Third seal. Uh, you put blindness, which I don't think is a very great perk, um, or effect. It doesn't really do much. The only thing that it's got going for him is that it's indefinite, and once the hex totem is cleansed, it just goes away. So I don't know. It counters maps and and object of possession. So I don't know. It's a very weird perk. It's situational. Foil the Hunt, cleansing speed for it being a hex perk, and you just get blood points for each token that's up. It's literally just alone. It gives you a notification when somebody works on a hex totem. That's it. It's basic. It's pretty basic. Uh, it's basically what Undying was, but within notification form, and it makes that cleansing speed slower. I think they should bump it up to 10 for cleansing speed for anybody to actually willingly run this. Because if it's at 6 and you're all the way across the map, you're gonna run to your little ruin that you want to get to from all the way across. Even though, like Undying, imagine running through the hunt, Undying and Ruin, so you're running all the way across the map, and you stop them, and they keep going back, and then eventually they get it because you're like carrying somebody else, and then it's still Undying. Make it 10. It makes it waste their time so much trying to cleanse that totems. Hoarder. Within 64 meters of your location. I feel like it should, it would be pretty cool, if it was, you gain a notification when they start within 64 meters, and within 12 meters of yourself, their auras are revealed to you when they're searching through a chest, like unlocking it, and keep that additional too. Those would be fine. I'm all ears is pretty good. It's perfectly fine. It's got the cooldown. That's fine. It's fine. It just works for whenever people need it. Most useful on nurse here because you can just go straight through the wall after you do it. Infectious Fright, perfectly fine by me. Insidious, this one's weird. People mostly use it just to camp. Nobody really stands still that much for it. I think you should be undetectable for a little bit longer after standing still. But nobody really uses this that much. And people just use it to camp hooks and prevent borrow time. Iron Grafts is fine. And the effects of the struggle are reduced by 75%. I feel like it should just be all together, because you can barely feel it anyway. They should just bump it up, and you get an extra 12% slowdown time for when they're trying to struggle out. Iron Maiden got a buff recently. They buffed it from like, I think 15 to 30 for the amount that they're exposed. and they also scream. Um, I think this is fine. Like the 30 seconds, it's still pretty bad. Alright, here's something I thought about. Like, I got multiple concepts for this. This knockout basically just encourages slugging indefinitely. That's literally the whole point of it. What if they made it, instead of for 15 seconds, they made you crawl 50% slower indefinitely when you knock somebody out, but you get rid of the aura shade, basically. Uh, Making outside of the 60-meter range of it, they can't see them, of the auras of the survivor. I think they should just get rid of that and make it indefinite slow down. So like if you're running around, they're gonna find you because you're just they're crawling around and you're gonna walk up and they're gonna find you. Like I don't know, just make it indefinite 50%. Lightborn is fine. They actually buffed it to where like it's indefinite. This is a very situational perk, so I don't know. Mad Grit is fine. I guess it's situational again. Make your choice is fine. It's whenever you unhook somebody and you're far away, they're exposed for 60 seconds. Mindbreaker, um, maybe bump it up to 15 seconds instead of 5, because people are just gonna walk like during the chase and they get their dead hard or sprinters back, so they're gonna just run away. So, I mean, it doesn't really do anything, but if they're running, that means they have to stand still for a solid 15 seconds. And then that's actually a little bit more viable, but like for now, like after they just leave a generator, I don't think should be. Maybe 10 sounds more reasonable, but 5 is horrible. Monitor and abuse. Ugh. It's fine. It's literally useful for its own reason. Monster Shrine. Also, after Doctor's rework, I've always thought about this. Monitor and abuse is really bad on Doctor, so I don't know why it would be his perk anymore. Because it lowers your terror radius while you're outside chase, but that's a part of your power, so you want it to be big. But then like you can't see people from like a slightly less range. But Monster Shrine, uh, I don't know. Make the difficulty on escape attempts altogether, and the penalty altogether, and make the entity progress in Kill Shack, let's say 15% faster, and make it stack depending on how many people are in it, are in basement. So basically it goes from 15 to 30 and it's insane. But like, yeah, I feel like it would be a little bit better. But like 9%, that doesn't really do anything. Nemesis is fine. It reveals their aura and then they're oblivious after you get stung by a pellet or DS or flashlight. Oppression, I don't think it needs 80 seconds like just like Dragon's Grip. Uh, for it being a gen defense thing perk and people making it more viable for other people to use, it would take less than 80 seconds for you to go to one gen and to another gen and then to another gen. It would take about 50 instead of 80. But instead this one, it does the thing where it makes a hard skill check. Make it 60. 60 feels more reasonable. 80 is a little bit too much. Just like it's just adding the extra 10 seconds for the skill check. Overcharge. Make the skill check. Make the skill check. I don't know. The skill check isn't really that hard. It's just a DS skill check. People only get caught off guard the first time and then they concentrate. Make the fail like 15 or 10% instead of 5, because it doesn't really do much. Overwhelming presence is fine depending on the color you're using it on. Nobody uses it though, so make the item consumption rate 200%. Even though like 100% is pretty bad when you use it. I notice depending on what item you're using. Play with your food is fine. Like the 5% bonus for leaving a token is pretty interesting to me. Pop is fine. They shouldn't have nerfed it to 45, but it's fine. Predator. Okay, back onto actual trash perks. Predator reveals makes the scratch marks more together, but for finding survivors, that's pretty bad because you want to see it on the environment like trees and grass and walls and stuff just to figure out that somebody was there. Make Predator completely different and make it while you're in chase instead. And make it way closer than it is now. Closer in chase would be so much, can't speak. Only in chase, making it closer would be so much better. And kind of like the Bloodhound, making that like a tracking perk instead of this one, because it's terrible outside of chase. Rancor, I don't think they should let you know that Rancor is a thing. Making your aura revealed for 3 seconds to the obsession is very weird to me. Because they really shouldn't know about that. Just like have a big surprise at the end. Also, another, like, I don't know, I'm not going to talk about it. I just told you just watch Ox's video. It makes it so much better. Remember me? Make, instead of, well, that's basically the new perk. But instead, I don't think the 16 seconds isn't really that much. Maybe just give it like an extra 1 second for each hit that you get on your obsession. Make it 20 at maximum instead. Save the best for last is, like, if not the most good best perk in the game, and it's pretty balanced to me. Shadowboard is useful in its own way. It's literally just used for people who want a wider FOV. It's not really gameplay useful, but it's useful in its own way. Sloppy is perfectly fine. Okay. Spies from the shadows. Here's something else I wanted to talk about. The crows communicate with you directly 100% of the time within the 36-meter range. And it has a cooldown of 5 seconds. Okay. So, no cooldown. Make it increase the spawn rate of crows, but slightly, like moderately and tremendously for each level. Then make it where, make a passive where you cannot yourself disturb crows. So if a crow gets disturbed, it was somebody else. Spies is very weird and strange. It works sometimes and then it just doesn't work. But like, I think it really, that buff could actually make it useful. I'm just trying to make all these terrible perks be used in everyday perks slots. Spirit Fury is fine. It's useful with enduring mostly. But like, I don't know. Make it where, honestly, make it where if you get stunned by a pallet and with the chew, instead of having to run enduring with it, you make it like not exactly enduring, but like half of what enduring normally does. And whenever you get stunned by a pallet with the two tokens that you've used up, it's slightly faster. Instead of it just breaking automatically, and you don't, and you just get stunned. It's honestly almost pointless because you could just run brutal instead of it alone. You just, yeah, like brutal strength is the equivalent of getting stunned by a pallet and just like respecting the pallet. Just run brutal strength. Make it make it like a slightly thing. Make it not stack with enduring though. It doesn't stack. Enduring just makes it faster at what it normally is right now. But I'm just saying making it a standalone perk. This thing alone is pretty bad. Strider is fine. I think it should work um on Iron Will people, just to make it basically that one perk that works on Iron Will and not okay. Search 32 meters. Make it bigger. Make it like 40, and instead of 8%, put it at 7. And yeah, that's fine by me. Like make it 47%. It's perfectly fine. Surveillance and search work very well together. Um, I feel like they should make it where instead of surveillance, instead of them having the aura for 16 whole seconds, uh, it doesn't let you know when they let go, like whether or not they tapped it or not. I feel like it should work, um, kind of like if you have Ruin on, and when it lets go, it turns red. So it lets you know if it's a red, like if it's a kick gen or a non-kick gen or a worked on gen. Basically, if they are holding it, then you know, and you walk that way, and then they're on it. If they're not holding it and they just tap it, it goes yellow for a second and then it turns red. Then you know that they tapped it. It's just making it a viable strategy just to tap it in. But most times they won't know you have surveillance. Territorial. I don't understand the 32 meters away from the basement thing. Put it down, like way down to like, because if they're going in the basement and their auras are revealed, and I don't understand the cooldown. Shouldn't be a cooldown. Honestly, just make it where if they're in the basement, the auras are revealed indefinitely, and you still get the notification of like the little sound that it makes, and yeah, just indefinitely, and drop down the 32 meters in half, make it 16. I'm just saying, Territorial is never used ever. The Nanophobia, I don't understand why they got rid of the healing thing, but I feel like they should bring back the healing thing. If not, then uh, give us more of a percentage, to gens, please, because that 1% you just got rid of half the perk. I mean, I don't know. Just bring back the healing thing and keep it at 5%, and then it's like even more viable than it was. The Thrilling Tremors has a hefty cooldown of 60. Maybe drop it down to 30, rewarding killers who do faster chases. I think that's a little bit better, because if most of the time I go and down the survivor, pick them up. Thrilling Killers have it activated for the 16-second duration. I go to the other gen, I chase somebody down, I knock them down, and I still have like 15 seconds left on the perk. Drop it down to like 30. Because just make it where yeah. Tinker is fine. It got buffed to where it needs to be, and it's good now. Trail's Torment's fine. It got buffed to where it needed to be, and it's good now. Unnerving Presence. It makes the skill checks a little bit harder within your terror radius, and it makes the skill checks happen more often. Basically, I don't know. It just makes it easier to hit great skill checks, but it just makes it harder to hit skill checks in general. So, pretty much, I don't know. Just make it unnerving presence. Imagine they just make it get rid of great skill checks within your terror radius. I don't know. It makes it increase the chance of grabbing it, on like just more rapidly. Kind of like the skill check for Doctor, but it just doesn't increase stuff like that. Unrelenting. It's very, very weird and strange at times to use. I use it on Myers because he's got an increased lunge, and once he gets that increased lunge, you can get to an area, you can swing early, you miss. They don't vault the pallet. They don't drop the pallet because they don't know, because they're gonna use it on your early swing. Then you can catch up and you can use your insta kill. Whispers is fine. It works in its own way. And Sentient Tack, it's the last perk that actually needs to be worked on. Why is there a cooldown? Why does it have to go inactive? Make it indefinite while in a chase. That's yeah, because it goes away whenever you hit somebody. I don't think that should have a purpose at all. Just make it indefinite while you're in a chase, so you know which way they're going. It works on Pyramid Head and Doctor already, but like while it's in a chase. I mean, also it could actually not while you're in a chase. Make it indefinite, and in general, just make it indefinite. I don't understand the cooldown. It doesn't need one. All right, so that's all the killer perks and my thoughts on every single one of them. Yeah, most of them are perfectly fine, but like a lot more are not. So there you go. There's my thoughts. My throat hurts from talking this long, so I will be doing the Survivor video at another time. Thank you very much.